quiet. Mostly sunny skies for the afternoon. High temperature 80.
Good morning and welcome to the Greg Belfrage Show. Really great to have you along. There is now new video from the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, and it's pretty chilling. You can see this guy running along the building in the background. Really kind of disturbing stuff. So we're getting underway here, so let's get to it.
The Doctor of Discernment is on the air.
Tell you what, I don't know about you, but I'm going to go to bed.
The Biden administration has a fatal attraction to nutty ideas.
Dispensing a daily dose of common sense, no prescription required.
I love the show.
I don't hate going to work anymore.
Americans love a winner and will not tolerate a loser. Americans play to win all the time.
I don't believe in the no-win scenario.
This is the Greg Belfrage Show.
Good morning, my friend. The marketplace of ideas is open. Thank you so much for letting me join you this morning. Welcome to the Greg Belfrage Show. This, I think, is just a huge story. The video from the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. I know we'll get to some of the other stuff here in a moment, but I think this is the big story this morning. There is video that is from James Copenhaver. He was, Copenhaver. He's one of the victims who was wounded in the July 13th attempt then to try to kill Donald Trump. And you can see the AGR building, the building across the street, where the shooter was located, and you can see a figure clearly running across the top of the building. So you see him running, and then at one point, and then you lose sight of him, and then you see a head come up, and it wasn't long after that then that the shots were actually fired. So you see that video, and you think, again, it just really, at least in my mind, raises a lot more questions as to what was going on with Secret Service and what were they doing and what were they watching, and just absolutely incredible. You can see this guy moving across the top of the building, and then again, moments later, shots wind up being fired. So that those of you who follow me on Facebook, I shared that video with you there this morning. I also, for those who follow on X, I shared it there. It's pretty chilling, and I see Fox News Channel is showing it pretty extensively also this morning. I think this is big news. So you see this guy running across the top of the building, and again, it just raises more questions as to, well, I think it's not even raises questions so much as it just demonstrates the failures that occurred of on the part of Secret Service that day were, I think more than many of us realize. And this is why I think you had people who were there, who were seeing this kind of stuff, who were saying, hey, there's somebody, there's somebody over there. And it's pretty crazy. So this video has gone viral. And it's, again, it's someone running across. I'm not saying it's Thomas Crooks, but it's the same rooftop that he fired from. You've got to believe it's likely Crooks choosing a position. If it's somebody else who was up there, that would be pretty disturbing. So, again, the Fox News has got the video, and James Copenhaver, who was wound up being shot. And by the time he was shot, he had turned his camera off. So he had turned his camera off, and of course, the rally was getting underway, so on. Trump was on the stage, and then so you turn your camera off, and you kind of settle in to watch Trump and his comments. And having been at, the Trump event out at Mount Rushmore back when he was president, it was kind of the same thing. You got your camera and you're taking, and then it's like, okay, well, you shut it off and you're trying to watch what's going on. So you can find that, again, for those of you who follow me on Facebook or X, I shared the video there. Breitbart's got a story on it. FoxNews.com's got a story on it. Also, JustTheNews.com has a story this morning. Prior warning, Secret Service to face bombshell revelation from top Homeland watchdog. Well, that caught my eye. And this is the Inspector General of the Homeland Security Department, who said Secret Service did not identify best practices and lessons learned from the 2011 White House shooting incident. He wrote, this was in a report back in 2016. He warned that an agency with a zero failure mission has failed to learn from one of its high-profile setbacks. And this just seems to just keep going on, what we see from the Secret Service. And Secret Service had said at the time, no additional training was needed. They made, Secret Service had made some of its own changes. Also, Breitbart's got a story on this in reaction from some Republican senators. Senator Roger Marshall talked about the individual and systemic failures by the Secret Service on the day of, the assassination attempt. And he said it's fueling increasing public anxiety amid a cratering economy and a broader collapse of faith in governmental institutions. And so he said, back home, this is all that people wanted to talk about is the Secret Service failure. I'll tell you, it's because people back home don't feel safe, Marshall said. He also talked about the amount of turnover in the Secret Service. He called for the creation of an independent, non-political commission, leaving no rock unturned, investigating the Secret Service failures. Secret Service has had a 48% turnover in a year's time. Barely 50% of them trust their senior leadership. Look, the Secret Service is negligent, incompetent, and there's a cultural failure within their organization. You watch that video and you see that guy running across, seriously, and the fact that he was not stopped before he was able to fire shots. That is really damning evidence. So that video is out there. Also, this is the story that the media is on. The media is all on this story about Donald Trump, and he was speaking to the National Association of Black Journalists at their annual convention. And he was asked about, talking about Kamala Harris, and Donald Trump suggested that Harris only recently became black. And Trump said she was always of Indian heritage. Now, keep in mind, Kamala Harris has mixed, parents. Growing up as also a Native American president, or excuse me, a Native parent was the word I was searching for. A Native American parent and a black parent. So, and Trump said she was always of Indian heritage and she was only promoting Indian heritage, he said. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago, until she happened to turn black And now she wants to be known as black, Trump said. So he was continued to make that point. And then ABC News' Rachel Scott said, well, Harris attended a historically black college, has always identified as black. And Trump said, is she black? She was Indian all the way. And then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person. So this may be a part of the reason Trump was scheduled to speak for an hour. It was cut short after a little over 30 minutes. And a lot of reaction to what Trump had said. Kamala Harris, meanwhile, says this is the same old show. She was, again, the interview, according to Axios, was cut short after 34 minutes. But Kamala Harris reacting to this, she said this afternoon, Donald Trump spoke at the annual meeting of the National Association of Black Journalists. And it was the same old show, the divisiveness and the disrespect. And let me just say, the American people deserve better. The American people deserve a leader who tells the truth, a leader who does not respond with hostility and anger when confronted with the facts. We deserve a leader who understands that our differences do not divide us. They are an essential source of our strength, she said. And the Harris campaign released a statement saying the Donald Trump that America saw at NABJ is one black voters have known for years. So that was the response from Kamala Harris and her campaign. Meanwhile, you've got Senate Republicans who are also bothered by this. Senator John Thune said that Trump needs to focus on policy issues and not race. And I think that's the question for you and me this morning. Should Donald Trump be focusing on policy issues instead of race? Senator Thune said the campaign must be about the issues. And there's plenty to talk about. I just think that's where the focus needs to be. That's how we're going to win in November, Thune told reporters. This is a story from thehill.com. So, trying to see if Thune said any more in regard to that. I think that's the extent of Senator Thune's comments. There's also some local reporting on this, on what Senator Thune is saying. And there are other Republicans who are saying the same thing. There's a piece of Washington Examiner this morning. Senator Steve Daines of Montana said, I think the most important thing we can talk about is the policies and statements she's made. They're just very radical. Senator Tom Tillis, who is much more moderate Republican, he said the border, national security, and the economy. Those are the three issues that will send Republicans to Washington, he said in November. We focus on that, we win. We shift focus away from it, we start losing. Tillis said that's advice to all my colleagues in North Carolina who are running for re-election and anybody else who wants to sweep this town. We need to sweep this town. Senator Kevin Cramer in North Dakota, defended Trump, saying he was, questioning Harris's black heritage, or wasn't rather. He was making fun of the fact that she chooses it when it's convenient. I think there's some truth to that. But he went on to say the remarks aren't helpful. And he said it just opens Trump up for this kind of questioning, even though I think, as I've always said, we should take him seriously, not literally. But a lot of people are taking him very literally. Senator Tommy Tuberville of Alabama said, I don't get into all that stuff. Let him talk about what he wants to talk about. I'm talking about the bad shape our country is in right now because of her, he said. So does Donald Trump need to change his focus in regard to this? So Senator J.D. Vance defending Trump yesterday and the comments that he made about Harris and her biracial heritage. And he called the reaction to this hysterical. And he compared Harrison to a chameleon. Vance said that I frankly just think it's hysterical how much the media is overreacting to it. The president doesn't do scripted BS stuff. He actually goes into hostile audiences. He answers tough questions. He pushes back against them, but he actually answers them. And how nice it is to have an American leader who's not afraid to go into hostile places and actually answer some tough questions. So what he said, I thought it was hysterical. I think he pointed out the fundamental chameleon-like nature of Kamala Harris. She's flip-flopped on every issue. She's fake, she's phony, and I think our whole campaign is going to have a very fun time pointing that out. And it sounds like the president kicked us off in stride. So that's what J.D. Vance had to say about Donald Trump's comments. So there had been there's just a reaction right now to Donald Trump and what's going on with Trump. It's, this interview that he did with Laura Ingraham on with Fox News on Tuesday is still out there making headlines about when he was talking about pronouns, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And so Harris had listed her she, her pronouns. So Laura Ingraham asked Donald Trump, what about his pronouns? What pronouns are you using? And he said, I don't want pronouns. And so then Ingraham jokingly said, so you're fluid. And Trump said, nobody even knows what that means. And he said, ask her to describe exactly what that means. They're going crazy. We have to bring our country back to sanity. So now, and you've got the New Republic and a number of other media outlets who were picking up on this, and Laura Ingraham then asking that he, are you fluid? And there's a lot of distractions going on out there. I think the media is just really, really involved. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to share that story regarding the assassination attempt and the video, the latest video now that we're seeing. And you can see the guy running across you can see a person clearly on the roof from which the shooter fired, whether it's the shooter, whether it's somebody else. I mean, who knows? And, getting into this about pronouns, and don't you just feel like so much of this just wastes that's where the media is living. Also, it's worth touching. We've got the Olympics underway, and Katie Ledecky won Olympic gold last night in one of the two races. She has dominated, and she's dominated for a number of years now. So Ledecky winning gold for Team USA in the 1,500 meter freestyle at the Olympics. Some good things that are going on at the Olympics. She's now won 12 medals in 4 Olympic Games, tying her for the most Olympic swimming medals won by a woman. Pretty incredible. So Ledecky has 2 more events at the Paris Olympics. So she is undefeated in the 1,500 in her professional career. She's won 5 world titles, the first ever Olympic gold in the event at the 2021 Tokyo Olympics. So Katie Ledecky, is a force to be reckoned with. Also, there's a big story about the U.S. reaching a plea deal with the mastermind of the 9/11 attacks, along with a couple of others. So the man who was accused of being the main plotter in Al-Qaeda's 9/11 attacks has now agreed to plead guilty and will spend the rest of his life in prison then. So him and two of his accomplices are expected to enter the pleas at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, as soon as next week. And I'm curious to get your reaction about that. That is also, I think, a pretty significant story. And I think, again, as we're getting into, Donald Trump and his appearance in front of, black journalists on, and what he was saying, a distraction from all of, why is the Biden administration making a plea deal with the terrorists from 9/11? Why have those guys not, been executed? Honestly, I think it's a fair question to ask. So that's a look at the big stories this morning. It's great to have you along. Cloudy skies in 65. And this hour of the Greg Belfrage Show brought to you by the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month.
Nice, 5 to 8.
Yeah, I really think that the big story is that video of the assassination attempt, somebody up on the roof, from which we know the shooter fired, and you're seeing someone run across the rooftop and then vanish, and then the head coming back up again, and that's prior to any shots being fired. And you've got to wonder, why didn't Secret Service take him out when they had the opportunity? It's just a little bit mind-boggling. Okay. We're running down trending stories coming up here.
In the region last night. Today's forecast looks pretty quiet. Partly cloudy skies, our high temperature 86, and a northwest wind at 10 to 15 with lower values of humidity. Low tonight 63. Tomorrow will warm back up to 89 with a light north wind. Temperatures nearing 90 Saturday. From the storm.
In Sioux Falls at 6:30, cloudy skies and 65. Joe Bowman is in the Kello.com News Center. South Dakota Senator John Thune offered some advice to Donald Trump about sticking to the issues not focusing on race. Also, one person is dead following a plane crash in rural Yankton County. Joe will have details on those stories and more coming up in moments on Kello.
The alleged mastermind of the 9/11 attacks and 2 other terrorists awaiting trial at Guantanamo Bay will avoid the death penalty after striking plea deals.
Cody Sheikh Mohammed is one of 3 detainees at Gitmo who agreed to the plea deal sparing them the death penalty. He's accused of coming up with the idea of hijacking the airliners. He's believed to have presented the idea to bin Laden in 1996. He's said to have trained and directed some of those hijackers.
That's Fox's Lucas Tomlinson. Former President Trump questioned Vice President Kamala Harris's racial identity in a tense appearance at the National Association of Black Journalists conference.
I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black.
Vice President Kamala Harris spoke in Houston in front of Sigma Gamma Rho, a black sorority, saying his comments showed divisiveness and disrespect. America's listening to Fox News.
Kello News Time, 6:31. I'm Joe Bowman in the Kello.com News Center. South Dakota lawmakers met on budget issues in Pierre yesterday, showing their concern.
Over the next year, 2 or 3, we might be in some perilous financial times. I'll leave it at that.
That's Senator Jim Bolin of Canton of the Legislature Appropriations Committee, as state budget officials point out a decline in state sales tax revenues. The committee is also weighing another major challenge, the impact of initiated Measure 28. It would repeal the state sales tax on anything sold for human consumption, including tobacco. The Legislative Research Council says if it's passed, IM 28 could remove close to $650 million from the state budget. That's close to half of the state's sales tax revenue, which would have to be replaced. Cleanup continues in Vermilion and Winter after a severe thunderstorm rolled through the area Monday night with 70-mile-an-hour winds and golf ball-sized hail. In Winter, the storm tossed 2x4s into a building, damaged the screen at a drive-in theater, and tore part of the roof off of the Tripp County Veterans Memorial. In Vermilion, trees were uprooted or split apart, and the town's historic district also sustained damage. A pickup truck caught fire and exploded in an eastern Sioux Falls neighborhood last night. The truck was hauling 2 off-road vehicles when the engine ignited after what sounded like an explosion. Emergency crews responded to the area of 12th and Holt. The driver got out okay, no injuries reported. Crews were unable to determine what caused the fire. And the Sioux Falls Canaries are still hanging on to the top spot in the West Division. The Birds beat the number 2 Redhawks last night 4-3. They scored all 4 runs in the first. The teams meet in Fargo again tonight for Game 2 in the 3-game set. From the Kello.com News Center, I'm Joe Bowman.
The news never stops. Kello News Talk 1320 107.9.
After areas of severe weather last night, our weather today looking pretty quiet. Mostly sunny skies for the afternoon. High temperature 86 with a northwest wind 10 to 15. For tonight, mainly clear, low 63. Tomorrow's high temperature back to 89 with a light north wind. From the Storm Center at Kettledan TV, I'm meteorologist Brian Karstens.
Trying to keep my eye on the video just in case. I had a number of people who were commenting yesterday morning, and so I'm going to try to keep a better eye on YouTube. My YouTube is over here, so I'm trying to look to see if anybody has commented or engaged in online chat.
What Tesla does not tell customers is that it's been
So I notice from day to day, the number of people who are watching on YouTube actually could be quite different, quite dramatic. And Wednesday seems to be a pretty good day for some reason. I've noticed that. For whatever reason, Wednesday folks are tuned in and engaged, and
Tesla's defense, it tells drivers to keep their hands on the steering wheel at all times, which raises the question,
okay,
why is this unsafe autopilot feature at all? If you're not tech ahead, you'll be left tech behind. You can get Tech Smarts with my free newsletter at getkim.com. AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry and literally billions of dollars.
Yeah, if you also follow me on Facebook, or you follow me on X, I posted this video. You have got to check out this video of somebody running across the roof of that building from which the shooter took shots at Donald Trump. The figure is clearly visible. And really, as I saw that, you can understand why people who were in the crowd were saying, there's somebody over there, hey, we see somebody.
If you want to do more and spend less, like
pretty dramatic.
Take a free test drive of OCI at Oracle.com.
And this is an interesting story about at justthenews.com. Representative Barry Loudermilk he's the chair of the House Administration Subcommittee on Oversight. He's been looking to get a report on what's happened here. Specifically, he said, some of the Inspector General has had some damning reports of Secret Service even well ahead of this incident. So they're trying to get a hold of that report and saying it'll be pretty important to see it. And this is a story that from justthenews.com and John Solomon. And Loudermilk said, this needs to happen soon because we just created a task force to look at it. And I think there's important information there. So, in other words, failures of the Secret Service in the past. How much are those playing a role in what we saw happen here last month? All right, let's run down trending stories here. 638, cloudy skies and 65. You're listening to the Greg Belfrage Show on Kello. This hour of our show brought to you by the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month.
What's trending now?
Add them on Facebook.
Let the tweeting begin. The hashtag does that. News and views from Belf's News Gallery.
Well, the mastermind of the 9/11 attacks and two others have agreed to plea deals at Guantanamo Bay. So Pentagon officials declined to immediately release the terms of the plea bargain, according to the New York Times. They cited unidentified Pentagon officials saying the terms included the men's longstanding condition that they be spared the risk of the death penalty. Excuse me. So that will be the case. They will not receive the death penalty, and they are pleading guilty. Also, Katie Ledecky has won her 8th career gold medal in the 1,500 meter freestyle, set an Olympic record, and she's having an incredible Olympic Games this year. Pretty incredible. So she is. Sporting News said there are plenty of ways to describe the American swim sensation. She's a world record holder, an Olympic gold medalist, world champion, and all-time great Olympian. She's also arguably the best in the world at long-distance swimming. So winning a gold medal in the 1500 meter freestyle, pretty big win for Katie Ledecky. Also, Donald Trump appearing at the Conference of Black Journalists and questioned Kamala Harris' background. And this is the story that the legacy media is really just pounding, and we'll talk about it coming up this morning. Is this a mistake? Would you rather hear, again, Donald Trump talking to black journalists? Does he have an opportunity here to talk about, the economy, and especially, I would think the economy, and what he can do to try to turn the economy around, and what that's going to mean for black and ethnic people of all kinds, versus questioning whether Kamala Harris, is she Indian or is she black? That she has presented herself previously as Indian, Trump says. Now, ironically, as you talk about, politicians who are chameleons, there's a piece this morning, and this is trending. There are a number of different outlets that have stories on this: Newsweek, New York Post, and more. Kamala Harris mocked for sudden fake Southern accent during her campaign rally in Atlanta. And so New York Post says, she dipped into the Southern drawl. Well, she was in Atlanta at this speech. And also Newsweek is reporting, and I'm surprised they're reporting it. Newsweek says that this is the comment from Trump. Trump had said on True Social, crazy Kamala Harris, voted the worst vice president in American history, needed a concert to bring people into the Atlanta area. And they started leaving 5 minutes into her speech. Trump said. So, yeah, she did. Trump, and Trump, meanwhile, speaking before a crowd, and he's saying, we don't need big singers and what in order to get people to attend. And he said, that's all about you. He told the audience at his rally. Also, the president will deliver a primetime speech on the first night of the DNC. Officials are also planning a big tribute to the president. So the president will deliver an address on the first night of the DNC, according to a source. So the convention starts in less than 3 weeks. So planners had to figure out when to fit in a major address from the president. Also, Donald Trump had a speech that was delayed by Secret Service. It was a Bitcoin conference event. And the Secret Service prevented Trump from taking the stage and giving a speech in Nashville, Tennessee on Saturday due to a security lapse. So the lapse occurred. Now the Secret Service is being incredibly careful. So Donald Trump's speech was delayed, and I don't know, and they wound up clearing it and went forward. And is it wrong of me to be skeptical? Was there an actual threat then to Donald Trump there? And I read about this a little bit yesterday. This story was actually already out there yesterday. That there were 2 individuals who were credentialed and screened, but then were removed from the event because they were not following the rules for entry and so on. And I thought, is the Secret Service doing that just to save face, or was it a legitimate concern? I think, I'm going to be typical of some who are going to be now routinely questioning what's going on at the Secret Service. Also, Nora O'Donnell, the anchor of CBS Evening News, said on Tuesday she is leaving after the presidential election. She will leave this as the anchor of the CBS Evening News. She's been there for 5 years, and she will stay with CBS News. And she told colleagues it's not clear what she will be doing. Prior to this, she was a host of CBS Morning News Show. She was also White House correspondent covering Barack Obama's administration. And she apparently told her colleagues that she's looking forward to the change. But Nora O'Donnell stepping down as the anchor of the CBS Evening News. I shared this story yesterday. It was big news yesterday. It's trending this morning. The leader of Iran is ordering a retaliatory strike on Israel following the assassination of the chief of Hamas. And things in the Middle East have been heating up. Meanwhile, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken says the U.S. was not aware of or involved in the assassination of the Hamas leader. He said that he reiterated the importance of a ceasefire in Gaza. This was yesterday. And he said, this is something we were not aware of or involved in. It's very hard to speculate, he said, as to what's going on. Then Blinken had calls with a number of people, according to the U.S. State Department, and he stressed the importance of the ongoing ceasefire talks. And as you watch what's been happening over there, that appears to be less and less likely that a ceasefire is going to be possible. Other stories that are trending this morning. The Fed meeting this week, holding interest rates steady and hinting at a rate cut in September. So, CNET said, see you in September. That pretty much sums up the sentiment of the Federal Reserve, which once again voted to hold interest rates steady, as most experts expected. But the Federal Open Market Committee statement following the meeting will likely raise hopes of a rate cut in September. Also, other economic news. June job openings dropped. They fell marginally as consumers are less upbeat on the labor market. So U.S. jobs openings fell modestly in June. Data for the prior month was revised higher, suggesting that the labor market is gradually slowing down. And many are saying they're trying to say it's not in danger of weakening rapidly, but it is slowing down. So job openings in June fell to second lowest level since President Biden took office. Also, you've got the nephew of Donald Trump, who has been trending. Have you seen this over the course of the last few days? Fred Trump the third. Fred Trump the third. Why would anybody named Fred want to continue to pass that on? Fred Trump the third. Forgive me. So he's referring to Donald Trump. Fred Trump III's got a new book out. And he's calling Donald Trump atomic crazy. And he is saying that Trump used a racial slur decades ago. And he's talking about saying that Donald Trump used the N-word. And this would have been a time that he was like 10. And he was actually even asked, he was being interviewed about that. I saw this story in more detail yesterday. So he was asked about, you actually remember that when you were 10 years old? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I remember it. Also, the United Auto Workers Union, remember how they had refused to endorse President Joe Biden? They were not going to endorse Joe Biden. And in fact, they showed up at the Republican National Convention. First time ever that United Auto Workers were there. Well, now they have endorsed Kamala Harris for president. So they wouldn't back Joe Biden, but they are backing Kamala Harris. So apparently the honeymoon with Republicans and Donald Trump. And again, they were pretty tough. And I shared the story at the time. They were not there endorsing Trump, but they were invited by Trump. And they, showed genuine appreciation for the invitation. But they also made it really crystal clear they weren't backing down on any of the issues that were important to them. And they were not endorsing Donald Trump, but they were saying that they appreciated the invitation to the event at the Republican National Convention. Also, this is a story from the UK that's been trending. More than 50 UK police officers were injured as protesters. Have you seen the story about the 3 girls that were killed during the Taylor Swift themed dance class? And it's been big news over in the UK, and a lot of heartbreak and anger surrounding this. So they're holding a vigil for these 3 girls. Enter the nut job protesters. Enter protesters, and it again, things really went sour. So it was a violent crowd of several hundred that hurled bricks and bottles at riot police, set garbage bins and vehicles on fire, looted a store in Southport. Again, this is over in the UK. Hours after this peaceful vigil had taken place for those girls. So there's a lot of, keep your eye on those kind of events coming from the UK. You are beginning to see a lot of that kind of same thing happen in the United States. The protesters then afterward seeing the very same thing. I mean, that just a lack of law and order, and not only in the UK, where it's been prevalent for a number of years, now we're seeing it's becoming fairly routine in this country. A little bit disturbing. I mentioned this to you yesterday, but Google and Meta are under scrutiny over AI chatbots then omitting details of the Donald Trump assassination attempt. Donald Trump urging his supporters to go after Meta and Google for not allowing those photos of him following the assassination attempt. Also, speaking of the UK, this is a really disturbing story involving an anchor at the BBC. They call them presenters over in the UK. You're not an anchor, you're a presenter. So a former BBC presenter has been charged with making indecent images of children. facing 3 counts now of doing this. His name is Hugh Edwards. He's a veteran broadcaster, 62 years old. He left the corporation in April, now facing 3 charges. Also, El Chapo's son pleading not guilty in U.S. court after his arrest. So he pled not guilty to U.S. drug charges on Tuesday, 5 days after his arrest. And that's a look at the stories trending this morning in Belf's News Gallery. Thanks so much for letting me join you this morning. Got a little bit of sunshine, cloudy skies, 65. And this hour of the Greg Belfrage Show brought to you by the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month.
And first to talk about it.
Well, I want to thank you, my friend, for letting me join you on YouTube this morning. It's so great to have you here. Please, if you'll hit the like button, it's very, very much appreciated. So hit that like button for me, and you have my thanks. So I will see you again tomorrow. I look forward to it. You take care. Hope you can join me for the after show on YouTube coming up at 9:30. So that'll be on the way. So long until then, my friend, and may God bless.
GMC in Sioux Falls. Millionauto.com/GMC. We are professional grade.